Hello, hello. Let's see. So, hello, everybody. How are you? I hope everybody's having a beautiful, beautiful Monday. So, kind of to continue what I have been doing to teach you more about the concept of what is it to feel your emotions and to begin to practice emotional integration and to reach a place of what we call emotional mastery. I want to do like a little series of videos this week with a little surprise on Friday I'm calling it the emotional mastery tips. So every day I can come and share something new that you can incorporate into whatever it is that you may be already doing for your emotional practice, or at least it can give you more clarity. And it's going to be different from what I have been sharing the last couple of weeks. So I would love for you to join me. I'm going to be coming on live every day this week. So yes. So today, I want to talk about something very important, which is the difference between understanding and knowing what's going on with your pain, with your suffering, with whatever it is that's going on in your life. So, knowing what's going on and actually feeling, because that is two very different things. And most of the time, I hear people tell me, I already know that I have abandonment issues, or I already know that it's because of my anxiety. So, we have already put a name to what we're experiencing, which is good, which I'm about to explain. But that does not mean that we have processed it. So I would love to, before I get started, I want to tell you two things. If you haven't already, I want to invite you to download the free emotional mastery class that I recorded, where I guide you in how to practice feeling your emotions, because that's not exactly what we're going to do today. I'm going to explain a concept of that, but I'm not going to guide you through it, because that's the number one question that I get, is that I talk a lot about feeling our emotions, and then I get a message is like, but how do I do it? So if you want to try it, it's completely for free. I put the link here so you can get that right, and like get the video. You can download it right away, and then you can go ahead and be guided on how to begin to practice. So that's very important. I would love to know if there's anybody here. You can say hello in the comments. I would love to know who's here, and if you have any questions at any time, please let me know. So with this said, I kind of want to get started with today's class and what I want to share with you. And I want to tell you that the day that I discovered that I could bring slides onto our calls, that was a great day for me, because I love to do presentations, because I myself am also like a visual person. So I love to see what someone's explaining so I can really get it. So let me bring some information here on the screen. Perfect. Okay. Good. So today, like I mentioned, I really want to explain what is the difference between knowing what we're experiencing emotionally and feeling what we're experiencing emotionally, which is two complete different things. Now, when you hear me say this, I want you to know that I'm not trying to say that necessarily one is better than the other, which you're about to learn, because they support each other, but they're two complete different things. And I want to explain it because a lot of people reach a place where they feel they have done a lot of work on themselves, but I always hear that things are not getting better. Like, I already have tried everything, like I know what's going on, but I continue to experience the same things, or I continue to react in the same way. And I completely understand, because I was there myself personally, actually, for a long time. So that's why I wanted to make this class. So hopefully, if anybody out there needs to understand the difference between this, and that is the bridge that is going to help you get to that next place, you can do that. So first things first, I want to explain to you something that I call the four human planes. And this is, some of you have heard me talk about this before, but I want to explain it again. This, for me, this information right here really changed completely the way I perceived myself. And because of this information, it's also easier for me to guide my clients and my students, because the way I perceive other people is different. Before knowing this information, I thought, and I'm just going to talk about myself, that, for example, me, Luciana, I simply had a body, and some days I was happy, some days I was sad. I thought that I had zero control over my emotions. So I perceived that my emotions were just a result of other people and the world. So if the world was in a horrible place, I was in a horrible place. If other people were rude to me, then I had a bad day. You know what I mean? So I was very just reactive to my surroundings because I thought I had zero control of my emotions. I have a name, I have a body. Some days I'm happy, some days I'm sad, and that is it. Maybe I was open to the conversation of like having a soul, and I was like, and maybe I have a soul, but I don't know what that is. And that's it, right? So I was very limited in the way that I used to perceive myself. So when I was introduced to this information, everything changed. And I want to introduce this to you, which is what I call the 4 human planes. What does this mean? That all of us as human beings, we can almost call it, instead of having one body, we have 4 bodies. So it's like a party. It's like a party. It's 4 people, well, not 4 people, but 4 parts of us that makes us whole. And understanding this will help you try to see maybe what part of yourself needs more of your attention. And I've explained this probably in the past, but I want to do it again for anybody that has not heard this information before. So let's start at the bottom. So we all have a physical body, and that is the part of us that we know that we connect with the most because it's the one that we can touch. So we know we have a physical body, and we have been taught to care for that body. So most of us shower every day, we eat every day, we sleep every day, because we understand that those are things that our physical body needs in order to survive, right? Now, our physical body, the way that I like to see it, it's simply the mass. I always explain, if I just had my body sitting like on the table, that is my mass, my physical body. But why does my body move? Because I am alive, which means that there is vital energy running through my body. Because we're not going to be focusing too much on talking about the physical body in this class, I actually put it like if it was one, if you see in the little slide over here, the vital body and the physical body are almost like one same body because they work very together with one another. Thanks to our vital energy, our physical body can move and it can function in the way that it does. And our physical body is the densest, heaviest part of us that allows us to experience this physical world, right? For many people, that is all that we are. We're just, this physical mass, like floating around the universe. Now, when it comes to working through our pain, through our suffering, through our emotions, it is very useful to understand the other 2 parts of ourselves, of our human experience, which is our emotional body and our mental body. We all know that we experience emotions. We all have experienced them since we were very young kids, and we all know that we have them. And we all know that we have thoughts. But until we see it in this way, we just assume that everything is just like a big ball. And it's important to see that the needs that your mental body has and the needs that your emotional body has and the needs that your physical body has may be different. Now, a lot of the times, the work that we've done and that we have learned when it comes to emotions is very mental. And this is where and I've explained this recently in the other video that I made, where this is where the majority of people are. Nobody was talking about emotions. That wasn't in at all. And even like our mindset or our thoughts, that was something that people would never talk about and what I'm talking about is maybe like the generation of our parents or our grandparents, they were just taught to survive. And that's it. That's how the world was. And that was what you did. You have to work. You have to just get by. You have to raise a family, be a good person and survive. And that's simply it. Now we live in a world where we talk a lot about mental health. But for many people, because we call it mental health, the part of feeling emotions gets kind of blurred out, or it gets lost in translation, or it gets lost in the middle, or assumed that it's the same thing. In many ways it is, but there's two different parts. So what I want to explain today is how understanding things with our mind. What does this mean? And let me explain this to you here. Knowing something, understanding something with your mind, being able to name an emotion, for somebody to tell me, I know that I am feeling guilt right now. I know that I am feeling abandonment right now. That is you knowing it in your mind. Understanding or naming a mask of the ego. When you begin to do ego work, you may be able to name and recognize, identify, oh, right now I'm experiencing the mask of the ego of fear. All of this is good. Now, you may also begin to understand mentally what are your triggers. You're able to see, oh, when my significant other flirts with somebody, I feel jealousy or I feel anger. So you can understand mentally that causes you a trigger. Or you're able to identify the source of trauma. We're able to recognize sometimes in our story, because whatever the story is, maybe because my parents weren't there when I was a child, or because I experienced emotional abandonment, I now have a lot of insecurity or trust issues. I want you to see how everything that I just named right now happened at the mental level, which means you used your mind to understand yourself, which is a very good thing, which is a very important step into being able to feel your emotions. But if you only stay in the stage of understanding and knowing where you are, you will continue to react emotionally the same. This is where the key is. You will know a lot about yourself. And it doesn't matter how much you know, you will emotionally respond the same as you have always done. Sometimes there will be growth in the way that you will feel that you can control maybe certain reactions, but it may not be resolved at the root. Now, it works, and this is something that actually is needed to feel your emotions. So don't think that this is bad, and don't think that this is like a negative thing or anything like that. It's actually needed. But like I said, it won't resolve the pain that we experience at the emotional level, in the emotional body, and at the physical body. So a lot of our trauma, if you've ever experienced any kind of trauma, and when we hear the word trauma, a lot of the times we feel that, like a lot of the times we've experienced trauma, but we don't call it that because we think sometimes we connect trauma to something very extremely difficult or very violent. But a lot of the times, experiencing emotional abandonment. What does that mean? That your parents, when you were growing up, they were physically there, but for whatever reason, they were unable to be emotionally supportive. That means that maybe you experienced emotional abandonment. And if you experience that, it can bring a lot of different emotional issues when it comes to you reacting to the world. And it may come out in many experiences of trauma that we carry in our physical body. Now imagine how many of us try so hard to understand where we are mentally, and we feel so frustrated because it doesn't matter how much we know, we continue to react in the same ways. And it's because we are not crossing that bridge from just knowing to actually feeling our emotions. So I want to explain what feeling means. Now, we're moving from just the mental body into the emotional body. Now, because so many of us live in our mind and we're constantly just thinking, and we're constantly sometimes reading even a lot about psychology and positive psychology, we're so much in our mind that we think that we may not be feeling. Because a lot of the times when I tell people, okay, we're going to do an exercise, we're going to go feel, and they tell me, oh, no, I don't want to go feel. I don't want to go there. Thinking that they never feel. The reality is that all of us are constantly feeling and constantly experiencing the world. But the difference when it comes to healing trauma or processing emotions is when we choose to feel consciously. When you consciously choose to go to whatever emotion that may be there and sit there with it and process it. That is the difference. So if you've ever found yourself saying something like, I am afraid of feeling fear, you're actually, because people say, I'm feeling afraid of, I don't want to feel fear. At that moment, you're already feeling the fear. The only difference when you choose to feel an emotion consciously is that you actually make the decision to be aware of everything you're experiencing when you're feeling the fear. Most of us, when we start feeling fear, we begin to do everything in our power to run away from it. So our energy is not focused on the sensations and emotions of the fear, even though we are feeling it. Our energy is focused on how can I run away from this and make it go away. Yes? So what does it mean to feel consciously? Number one, it means we're gonna not just understand. It's not in the mind and it's not about the story. This is what it gets confusing. Like, what do you mean it's not about the story? Because we all connect our emotions to a story. We think we're fine until, your significant other, like I said earlier, flirted with somebody, or until your boss said whatever comment. So we all think I'm fine until somebody else does something. Here is trying to recognize we're not going to get lost in the story. We're not going to get lost in who did what. We're going to go and see, what am I feeling? And this includes moving from the mind and going into the emotional body and the physical body. Because many of you know that when you experience fear, your abdomen becomes a little tighter. You begin to breathe a little different, maybe a little bit more shallow. When you're feeling deep sorrow or deep sadness, you may feel a heaviness in your chest. When you're feeling whatever emotion it could be, you may feel something in your throat or a heaviness in your shoulders or your head. You experience emotions in your physical body as well. So it's important to know that. So this means feeling and processing the sensations in your body that are maybe connected to specific emotions, living them fully, even if they are intense, which this is something that most of us don't want to do. That's why it requires it being a choice of, I want to go there. It may be uncomfortable to feel the emotion of fear, but I choose to do it. And without projecting the pain onto others or losing ourselves in the story, as I was explaining before. So I want you to see how it's two complete different things to actually know what triggers your fear and actually sitting and feeling the fear. Does this make sense? And I want to see if you're hearing this, whenever it is you may be watching this, if you have any questions, comments, or anything at all, I would love to hear it, because that is my goal of creating these videos. I would love to know if you have any questions at all. But this is very, very important to understand. Now, many of us, another thing that I want to explain is that many of us confuse crying with feeling. And I want to explain something about crying. When we are experiencing a lot of emotions at once in our body, it may be, and remember I've explained before, emotions are simply energy that is moving. And it comes through your body, through your nervous system. When your system, whatever its amount of energy of whatever, or amount of emotion or whatever your energy levels are that day, when the system is full, and one way of releasing is through crying. Now, it doesn't only happen when we're sad. If you think about it, a lot of people cry when they win the lottery. In one moment, it's so much excitement and so much emotion that they cry, or whatever other reason, when they give birth or they see their baby for the first time. So crying doesn't necessarily dictate how much you're processing an emotion or not. Crying is simply a way that your physical body releases the pressure of the fact that it's feeling full of that emotion. So what I'm trying to say here is that it is healthy to cry. There is nothing wrong with it. Your body created that beautiful system of release for a reason. Now, sometimes we may be crying really hard because we're feeling an emotion, but we're not allowing ourselves to really experience it consciously. We may still be crying very hard, but lost in the story mentally. of I can't believe she did this to me, or I can't believe he did this to me, and just crying and releasing, your body may feel better afterwards. But the emotional pain, the sorrow, the sadness may stay with you. The goal when we begin to create a healthy emotional self care practice, when we begin to experience, if you practice emotional integration, is to be able to create that muscle of being able to process and feel whatever is there from a place of awareness. That is why I like using the practice of emotional integration, because it combines aspects of mindfulness, of meditation, and it combines the aspect of feeling, which we already do all of the time. So that's the only, I guess, twist or different thing. So I hope the difference is clear there. And let me see if there's any comments or anything like that. Okay, good. Let's see. Good. Now, I like to explain it like this. Now, before I explain this, I do want to say this is not the only process or the only steps, or they don't necessarily have to go in this order. But in general, really creating a lasting, long-term emotional self-care practice, or being able to long-term as part of your life, not just when you went through something difficult, as part of your life, create, heal trauma, move past any suffering or pain or whatever it may be, it is a process. All of us usually start in a place where we are unaware of our pain until it gets too loud, or we are unaware that we ourselves can do anything to help our pain, or even somebody else, even if we want to reach out to a therapist. Most of us start in a place of I am unaware of what I am experiencing or what I can do about it. This may be out of sometimes denial because the pain is so strong that we are in a place where it's like, I don't want to see it. Or it may be out of survival. So we never want to judge ourselves for being here, and we never want to judge anybody else for being here. Everybody always starts somewhere around there, wherever that is and whenever that is. It may be when you're a young child. It may be when you're 54 years old. It may be in a different moment. So there's no, it's not a race, and should never compare this to anybody else. But most of the time we start there. Now, something has to push us, and it's usually our own pain or going through a difficult moment or a crisis or our mental health, that it pushes us to say, okay, I want to see what's going on with me. And all of us, and that's where I started, and for most people, I'm not going to say every single person, we start trying to understand mentally. So we start reading about things, we started connecting now on social media with people that teach us about, oh, when I react like this, it may be because I have trust issues because of this reason. And we begin to connect the dots, and it helps us understand. We begin to recognize concepts like setting boundaries. What does that mean? Because some people don't even know that they have the right to create lines and boundaries between even family. Some people have never heard that. Sometimes boundaries within a significant other, even with your children, whatever it may be. So we move from I don't know what's going on with me to a place where I understand now. What I'm experiencing is that I'm experiencing anxiety or fear, or I have abandonment issues because of what I experienced in my childhood. And this is a great time of awakening for many of us, because a lot of the time is the first time in our life where we can put words to our experiences. And oh my God, I've cried so many times. Every time that I have a breakthrough where I'm like, oh, so I wasn't crazy when I was experiencing anxiety, or you know what I mean? It's that understanding. It's very healing, and it's part of the process. Now, this is where a lot of people stay. Now, understanding mentally, if I could say, it has a lot of beautiful awakenings. It's part of the process. It's needed. But if I could say if it has a disadvantage, is that it may just keep us mentally trying to label things and not help our actual situation when we're living the emotion. So I may understand, let's say I have trust issues, and I may know this, let's say for 10 years, but every time I'm in a relationship, I continue to act the same. I continue to create more pain for myself or others. I continue to sabotage or self-sabotage. So it's frustrating because then we feel, I know what's going on with me. Why do I keep responding emotionally the same? Now, remember, it's different for everybody. And sometimes, even if you are doing the work of mentally understanding and feeling emotions, it will still take time. But if you have been practicing, let's say, emotional integration for a while or doing a lot of emotional work and you feel you have not moved ahead in any way, sometimes it may be ask yourself, am I staying too much in my mind instead of really allowing myself, what's my body saying? What is our body telling us? Our physical body carries a lot of the emotions. So what is your body telling you? And this is important to know. And let's see here. Hi, Grecia. I just saw your comment. And hi, Christy. How are you? And Grecia says, thank you for sharing this amazing information with our community. Thank you so much, Grecia. I hope that one day, and I'm going to blast you out, I can bring you here to my channel because I love everything that you do. So thank you for being here. Hi, Christy. And yes, and I want to take this little break to remind you, if you want to learn more of everything that I'm talking about, to get the class where I guide you step by step, because I have been feeling a little bit that I come here and I give so much information kind of going through what I am explaining right now. So we're all understanding mentally what's going on. But then the question is, how do I feel it? Soon I will be coming live and guiding everybody that wants to join us live through an emotional integration session. But if you want to begin to practice it, you can download the free masterclass, and I put the link somewhere up here. So yes, if you have questions, let me know. So the next step from just understanding everything mentally is to actually move into our emotional plane to feel, to process, to sit there with the emotion. The reason why many of us don't go to this step is because it's not that fun. Afterwards, it's super fun. It's good. It feels amazing. But during, it's not that fun. If you think about it, the mental awakening tends to be like gratifying because the mind feels like, I get it. I know what's going on. That even if you want to see it in an ego perspective, the ego feels like, oh, I have more understanding of what's going on. Because remember, and I'm going to give another class about the ego, but the ego, it's not our enemy. There's nothing wrong with our ego, and the ego evolves with us. So the ego likes to learn. Let's just put it that way. So there's a lot of good moments when we're mentally learning what's going on. But when we start to feel emotions, the ego feels a little bit like it's not about it anymore. Like it's like, oh, so it's not my moment to shine anymore. And the more awareness you bring into painful emotions, it's almost like the ego feels defeated. And that's why, and also physically feeling any emotion. If you've ever felt sad, if you've ever felt the emotion of guilt, if you've ever felt the emotion of rejection, sitting with the feeling of any of those feelings, let's say with rejection, it's physically uncomfortable. That is why we don't like it. Even sitting with the emotion of shame. Right now, as I am speaking, we're naming emotions. Many of us may be very in a mental plane right now understanding this, which is good because you want to know this information to use it later, but not always live from there. But you may feel me here mention certain emotions, and then whoop, the emotion comes up. Now, normally we don't like it and we try to do something like, let's say rejection comes up, or let's use the example when... This is what I explain to my students. Like when you go with your friends and you tell them like, you know what, I'm feeling, you're going through a breakup, let's say. And it's like, you know what, you go with your friends and you're having a drink, right? And you tell them something like, I'm feeling very alone. I want to call him. I miss him. Sometimes your friends right away tell you something like, no, he's the one that lost, not you, or whatever the little chat they want to give us to try to pull us out of the sadness, right? Like if the world has taught us, do not feel, right? Even the margarita is like, let's numb this pain right now. Now, when we're doing emotional integration or emotional work, anytime my clients or the women in my group or my clients tell me, I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling abandonment. I'm like, oh, and how does it feel? Tell me more. Like the last thing we're gonna do is try to run away from the feeling. The last thing we're gonna even if somebody tells me I was sitting and integrating and I cried and I'm like, good. In any other scenario, people are like, no, 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 don't cry. And for me, it's like cry, process, let it be. And that's why one of my biggest passions is to normalize feeling emotions. Even while I was creating the slides for this class, if you go and Google like the platform that I use to find images and you put emotions or feelings, the things that come out are like maybe a girl with like a lot of thoughts in her mind or something like that. It's still very connected to something mental, like a mental thoughts and things like that. I always share the story as well of when I went to like a big event and there was like a motivational speaker and she was speaking and she was sharing something that she went through, something very personal, and she started to cry. And the first reaction like this of the crowd was to say, no, 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 don't cry. You got it. You got it. You got it. And try to prevent her from crying. For me, it's like emotion. Like this is a raw moment. There's something happening. There's movement there for that person. I mean, maybe if she is doing a presentation in front of thousands of people, maybe crying for 15 minutes wouldn't have been wise for whatever she was trying to do. But I do believe that we're going to reach a place in society where we're going to encourage people to feel when they show emotion without judgment and without, reacting negatively. It's normal. It's part of being human. So yes, and I wanted to make this process like this with little lines before unaware and little lines after the emotional planes because there is so much more. Those four human planes, it's called the human planes because we're talking about the human aspect right now. But a lot of what I teach also has to do with spirituality. So there's also our soul planes and our divine planes and a lot more if you like to see things like that. If you don't, you can at least use this to better and help your life. And my invitation to you, if you are watching this, is that to at least just open up to the idea of feeling. A lot of people, and I'm so blessed by the audience that I have here and the people that are part of this group, because I find that it's a lot of us peers that are interested in doing personal, spiritual, emotional growth. And if anybody has been feeling the pull towards every time more and more moving into feeling emotions deeper and deeper, because there's no better and worse, nobody can feel emotions like you. So it's not ever a competition, but if you're feeling that, to allow yourself to feel in simple little ways. And yes, so people tell me, so what is the goal, Luciana? What is the goal of all of this? And I always say, for most of us at the beginning, the goal is simply to build happier and more fulfilled lives, right? If we are experiencing a lot of sadness, a lot of anxiety, a lot of jealousy, a lot of rage, whatever it may be, a lot of the times it gets in the way of building our happy relationships, building a good career, building many things in our lives. So that's why I use the word building. When you're emotionally feeling well, or at least emotionally in charge of yourself, or how else could I call it? Or at least choosing to care for your emotions and your journey wherever you are in your life, anything else you want to do, anything else you want to build, it will be easier because the emotions won't be getting in the way. So many times I've seen it and I've experienced it where we might have projected all of our pain into a relationship or into a person or into a job that was actually great. You know what I mean? Like there was nothing wrong with that. Maybe it was just us, right? Like, oh, I was going through this and I just decided to project all of that in that person. Now, it was part of our growth. It's okay. It's part of our evolution. But at some point in life, it is wise to say, how can I build a happier, better, more fulfilled life? Now, the beautiful thing of this is when we do this, at some point, you feeling emotions, and all until this point, I've talked so much about emotions that may potentially be uncomfortable. But when you allow yourself to feel emotions, you're opening the door to feel all emotions, and especially to welcome in the emotion of love, which is not like just like pink hearts and that and like corny kind of perspective of love, which that's also beautiful, but it's the deep pure love that exists in everything, that is constantly welcoming you to a new experience because it trusts in your evolution, the kind of love that we cannot perceive or even see. It may even make us angry when we are suffering. And when we tap into that love, into that feeling, we begin to feel a deep sense of acceptance for ourselves. And when we feel that acceptance for ourselves, we begin to feel the acceptance for others. Those lines that keeps us so separated from other people and from different cultures and from everything even that we have been experiencing recently here in our country, those lines begin to be dissolved, because when you are full of love, we want to be full of it, but we're going to be full of love. It begins to kind of like pour out into the world. And we realize that it feels so good to serve others. We begin to live life from a place of, I want to serve, I want to contribute, I want to give. And that is when you reach a point in your life where anything you do, the things that maybe before made you very upset, now don't carry that heaviness any longer. And many of us have experienced it. It doesn't mean like, oh, when you process all of your pain, this arrives. No, we may experience it already right now, wherever we are, in little moments. The goal, because this emotion doesn't choose people. Nobody's better than anybody else. Never believe anybody that tells you that. We are all the same. We all have the ability to experience all emotions. We all experience this love. But sometimes, and I can mainly talk about the experience I used to have before working through a lot of the things that I had to work through, that love and that experience of even self-acceptance was just very tiny moments here and there. The goal is those tiny, but the anxiety and the depression and the panic that I lived in was most of the time, So eventually it began to switch. And then there's more of the moments of the joy, of the love, of feeling gratitude, of wanting to serve, of wanting to give. And then you live there most of the days, and then emotions do come that may be more dense, but you feel more capable of dealing with them and to move past them. So for me, that is the biggest goal. And I believe that we arrive there. And there's nothing wrong to start, continue, or however you want to call it, your personal growth or spiritual or emotional journey, first, just to be happier. Don't feel bad for that, because, sometimes we judge ourselves so much because our spiritual path or our personal development path is not like other people. We don't all experience the world in the same way. And that is the beauty of why we exist, right? Because I am of the belief that the source energy, the creator, God, whatever you want to call it, exists through all of us because it wanted to experience life through the eyes of each one of us. So why should our path be the same? And I remember I used to judge myself a lot at the beginning when I started my spiritual path, because I was never the kind of person naturally. I mean, I enjoy it, but it wasn't the kind of person that was very like into always going to nature to meditate, or, more of the new age kind of movement of spirituality, and even, I don't know, different things like that. I was never too much into that. And I realized, oh, does it mean I'm not spiritual? And it took a lot of, and it had nothing to do with that. It was my own self-judgment and my own way of not accepting myself. But realizing that wherever it is that you are in your journey, however it is that's coming, whatever your awakenings, it may be through the most mundane thing. I always say the reason why everybody can awaken spiritually through simply living is because the goal is to eventually have more and more and more and more conscious people everywhere. Not only, maybe like in the mountains, meditating, but we're talking about inside our hospitals and our banks and our schools, and at home, mothers raising their children, and whatever the story, that is the goal, that we all continue to awaken. And I remember somebody asked me once, do we need to follow any kind of spirituality in order to evolve? And the answer is obviously not. There are tools that come through different spiritual practices or even religion that help you, sometimes move through life and discover certain things more easily. But by simply being alive, you will evolve. It may take you longer to maybe awaken to the realization of something you went through, right? I always explain how, for example, with emotional integration, when it comes to emotional growth, many people, the example that I like to give is, let's say somebody goes through a heartbreak. A relationship ended, they got a divorce, and it was unexpected. It was a huge heartbreak. But they have no skills to process emotions, so they kind of just push the emotion down, to move forward and raise the kids or whatever the story may be. These are just examples. So then it's like I push the emotion down. But something happens in life that brings it back up. Maybe a new relationship and another breakup, or something else happens, and then it comes up a year later, and you kind of deal with it a little bit, and then you push it down again. And then 5 years later, it comes up again. And maybe it will take you 10 years, let's say, to finally feel like, you know what? I think I finally get it. That marriage needed to end. And maybe the understanding and the healing and the forgiveness comes in 10 years. Is it wrong? No, there's nothing wrong with that. It's perfect. It's what that person needed. Now, when you practice something like emotional integration, what you are saying is that you're choosing not to push the emotion down and not wait for it to come up whenever it wants to or whenever it's triggered. You are choosing to bring it up. So, for example, with me, I didn't want to wait for somebody else to maybe criticize my body to observe my shame and my rejection. I would go and sit down and choose to feel the shame and the rejection. So that is the only difference. So moving through the pain or processing the pain, if you want to call it like that, it may feel like it happened in a quicker amount of time because you felt it or processed it all at once instead of waiting for it to come up. Which one is better? Which one is worst? They're both a tool. What path do you want? How do you want to do it? How fast do you want to move through your pain? It's simply like that. Okay? But anyways, I'm gonna come out of here. I want to see if anybody has any questions at all. Let me know. I would love to answer any questions, comments. Let's see. Good, good, good. And if at any point, let me see here. Yes, Gracia says, yes, yes, yes. I love holding space for crying and feeling, resonating deeply with all of this. That is so good. And I agree. It's I love the word, and I'm so glad you brought it up. Holding space for crying, for feeling. For me, the words holding space is pretty much what I translate to when I use the word consciously, because when you're holding space, it's literally, I am choosing to be here with what it is that I am feeling. So I love that because that is, I wouldn't have thought of mentioning that right now, but that is a very popular term that many people use. And I want you to identify not only if you're not doing this, but maybe many of you are hearing this and you're like, oh, I actually do this all of the time. So Gracia is saying, can you tell us more about your groups and how to work with you for those who are interested? Yes, yes, yes. So one of the things, Gracia, that I am doing right now is I'm mainly working with women. So I have a course that I created, or a program. I call it a program because it has a lot of the community aspect of processing together. But what I do, it's mainly for women because I like to talk about everything that has to do with how we experience emotions as women, even though this is something anybody can practice. And that is the program that I call the Emotional Mastery Experience. And actually, I will be opening the enrollment for that soon. So I'm glad that you're asking. But the way that it works is that we work together for 5 months. And what I do is that I teach you the foundation of the practice of emotional integration from a perspective of how can we use like the combination of the consciousness, the mindfulness aspect of feeling emotion. And I introduce you to what I call the masks of the ego. So it's something that we call the ego roadmap, introducing to the work of the ego and identifying different emotions and reactions that we have that we all experience in life in order to be able to recognize our patterns. So what I do is specifically part of what I'm explaining right now is offering an understanding of the ego, and that is where we do a lot of understanding with the mind, and then being introduced to the practice of emotional integration so we can learn and be guided in how to feel it. And I like to involve also a little bit of different meditations. So the meditation for me and the way that I created this program is I have been working with clients for the last 6 years involving all of this information. And I realized that if we only do one, like if I only do meditation all of the time, I'm going to have a lot of resources. I'm going to be easily connected with my own consciousness. Now, a lot of people think that if you do a lot of meditation, automatically everything that's difficult in life will go away. And I've tried this myself in the last 10 years, and I've seen a lot of people that have only practiced a lot of meditation, but they feel stuck. It's like I'm still having issues when I fight with my significant other, right? But when I'm in meditation, I'm very peaceful. So meditation elevates our energy. So I like to involve a lot of meditation aspects. And specifically, we're going to be learning a very unique meditation practice that helps us connect with a lot of different positive states of being. Let's call it that way. Now, then I hear a lot of people that just wanted to do emotional work. So you can do a lot of emotional work, but if you only do emotional work and you're constantly just focusing on your pain, you may easily feel very depleted, where your mind may become negative because then it says, well, yeah, I have so much trauma and I have so much abandonment issues, and the mind becomes negative. So I realize it's important to involve the emotional integration practice, but combining it now more with also including a lot of the mindset part. So this new format of the program is the first time that I'm bringing it out in this way. So we're going to be learning a lot of positive mindset when it comes to doing a lot of emotional and spiritual growth. We're going to go deep into the emotional integration and the masks of the ego, and we're going to involve meditation. So it's 5 months, and we have a weekly meeting where we meet and we go deep into whatever it is that we learned that week. And it's been really nice just because for many of us, the first group of this program started last January, and we had no idea what was about to happen in the world. So it was very interesting for many of us that are spending more time at home or that are being triggered by a lot of what's happening right now in the world. Even though we may think it's what's happening in the world that's bringing up the emotions, the healing is yours, regardless of why you work on it. So we had a lot of opportunity to go deep into a lot of emotions. So I hope that answers some of your questions, Gracia. And if you want, I can also send you more information and things like that, because I would love if you or anybody that you know may be interested in something like this. I would love to support you. I'm so excited to start this next group. We're going to be started soon. Actually, I'm going to be opening the enrollment next week. So I'll share with you all of the details if you want to learn more. And yes, I'm so happy you're here. And outside of that, I want to invite you over here to the channel so you can share your gifts as well. So yes, but I hope that everything that I shared today hopefully inspired you, answered some questions, motivated you, whatever it is. I hope that it moves something to guide you and kind of push you wherever you are in your journey. Know that wherever you are, it's perfect. I am a firm believer that we are exactly where we need to be, and that there is always an opportunity for growth. And one of the most beautiful things for me is that a lot of the times it's not the information that is new that brings our awakening or that our next step. Sometimes it's the information that we have known that we are ready to go deeper into. And I always tell people when I share about like the biggest moments of like growth that I have had, they never happen in like crazy, amazing ways where it was like fireworks and like, like a scene out of a movie. It happened in the most mundane, boring moments in life where it was just like rinse and repeat, processing another emotion. It's been years of processing this, and suddenly things changed. So wherever we are, it's perfect. Good, good, good. Awesome, Grecia. So I will be sending you more information, and I would love to contribute together. So yay, perfect, perfect. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do, I'm gonna be letting you go so I don't take any more of all of your time. Now, one of the things that I do want to also talk about, since I share with you, I'm gonna be coming on live throughout the next couple of days. I also want to share with you, I want to bring more of that spiritual perspective of emotional integration. So until now, I've talked a lot about just emotional integration and the mind and growth and healing emotions and healing trauma. But for anybody out there that's more into the spiritual stuff, that's more into, the meditation aspect of it, I'm going to be talking a little bit about that tomorrow. So, okay, now we're going to feel our emotions, not just to be better humans and feel better in this human body and feel good, but how are our emotions supporting our spiritual evolution and our growth? So I'm going to be talking about that tomorrow. I'm going to be coming back as well. I'm going to be doing a little bit of an announcement soon about the time, because I'm still looking into what time I'm going to be doing it, but it's tomorrow 100%. Okay. So thank you so much. Thank you, Grecia. Thank you, Christy. Thank you, everybody, for watching. If you have questions later, let me know. If you think this could be helpful to anybody, if you want to share, I would appreciate it. And I would hope that everybody has a beautiful, beautiful day. Bye.